Welcome to Zonie Living. I'm Bonnie Stevens. Our guest today is an uber successful businessman and entrepreneur who has built a legacy in the home building world. Jose Berlanga is an entrepreneur from Mexico City. He has made a significant mark in the Houston, Texas real estate industry. His diverse background, including degrees in business administration, economics, and philosophy, has fueled his success in various sectors, making him a source of inspiration and mentorship for business people beyond the home building and real estate industries. This is a great opportunity to learn from the best. Jose Berlanga is joining us now.
How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us, and you are in Houston, Texas right now.
That is correct.
I wanted to talk about some of the lessons you've learned in the home building and the real estate industries. I noticed that they are applicable to business success in general. You've said you were an entrepreneur for as long as you can remember, even as a child. You were at that time figuring out how to make money, and when you were 17, you started your first company, which exported machinery for the petrochemical oil and gas business. By the time you were 21, you were already wealthy. Now, you've dabbled in many different kinds of businesses, and you've always wanted to have a portfolio of companies. So my question is, do you think entrepreneurs are born with that ambition and drive? And how would you describe the parts of your personality that destined you to be an entrepreneur?
It's a lifestyle. It's a life choice. I wouldn't say it's just a career. There's a lot to it, but most of all, I would say you need to be born with certain characteristics. One of them is having that the level of curiosity, let's say, ambition. You have to have one of those personalities that does not take no for an answer, that is always searching for something, that is always looking for something new. In reference to that question, as far as my first business, that's interesting because we could call my first official incorporated business when I was 17, when I started college, when I started attending the university. I began my official business, but you are correct. Some personalities begin very early in life. I can remember from the time that I was a little kid trying to figure out what to sell, what to buy, what to flip, from toys, clothing, something that someone wanted or needed. It's one of those particular natural behaviors of certain human beings where you are constantly looking for somebody's needs and wants and trying to fulfill them. So I would say that you can always learn how to become a business person. That is certainly something that you can train to become and to improve over time. But there are certain aspects that you need to be born with, with those desires.
Yeah, lots of ambition, it sounds like. And I can imagine you must have had a little red wagon that you pulled things around the neighborhood and tried to sell. Is that kind of how it went?
Yes. And it got sophisticated. Particularly, I had good opportunities, which is another one. We live in a great place. Even back then, when I was growing up in Mexico City, the opportunities were vast because I had the blessing that my father was in a business where he traveled a lot to the United States. And back then, importing American goods was very rare, was very difficult. So every time I came to visit the United States with my dad, I would buy a bunch of stuff, from candy, toys, unique items, memorabilia, and bring it over and sell it to my friends. And that's kind of how it started. I started realizing that certain things were needed that other kids didn't have. And one thing leads to another in the business world. And before you know it, you never stop. You just continue that.
That's awesome. Well, Jose, you got into the home building business with your brother, Tristan. He was the architect and more into the creative side, and you were in the business and finance aspect. And your new book, which I very much enjoyed, The Business of Home Building, How to Start and Operate a Residential Construction Company, you talk about how you found opportunity in transitional neighborhoods. Now, we've all seen how older neighborhoods in the heart of a city and the downtowns have gone through a revitalization phase. Would you please tell us about what you did and how you are were on the leading edge of a shift, bringing people back into the city limits of Houston. And also, it seems like there's a larger lesson here about finding the opportunity that others have missed and catching the beginning of a cycle of prosperity.
Yes, yes, and there's always a little bit of luck involved. You are correct. This particular business, I had been in a number of other industries, but this particular business was started with my brother. He was the vision behind this concept. He was the inspiration since he was a little kid. He wanted to be a builder. He wanted to design structures, and when the time was right, we started this company. I believe that part of it was an accident, and I have to admit that although I was the business and the financial side of it, he was more the creative, more the technical aspect of our company. Before you know it, those start overlapping tremendously, where you never know where you're going to end up. At some point, I acquired a lot of the technical knowledge, and he vice versa. He understood little by little the business side, where we both got to participate in every aspect of the business. But identifying opportunities is a little bit of a combination of where you are, how you start, and taking advantage of what's in the market, what's available. We found some properties initially that were available in the inner city. And interestingly enough, I don't think we thought at the time that it was the best business opportunity or financial opportunity. We just thought that it would be a great place to start with a small amount of money. Yes, we understood the transition where people from the suburbs were beginning to want to come back into the inner city. We've seen these cycles. I write a little bit of about the subject in my book as to how over time there's different reasoning. There's a logic behind why the suburbs, rural areas, inner cities become more popular, become develop faster than other times in history. But at this particular time, we caught a trend where a lot of people were recognizing the benefit of being in the inner city for one reason or another. It wasn't that popular to be building in the areas where we were because they didn't look very pretty. Like you mentioned, they were transitional. And that's a fancy word for calling them scary neighborhoods, forgotten, dilapidated.
Yeah.
It was very speculative to build there because the market was not proven. The market was not well identified. You couldn't really determine what to build, why put certain components of a house in any of these given areas. Is it going to sell? How much should I invest? But we attempted to begin with the lowest price points possible to minimize our risk and take advantage of the opportunity. So it worked. It worked, but it didn't work overnight. This is part of it. And this is something that I repeat, that I talk to other new builders and other entrepreneurs. We didn't make money on the first house or the second house or the third house or the 10th house. Wow. We lost money on some. We made a little money on some, but we were persistent and we noticed that the market was there. That was the positive sign. The positive lesson in the early years of our business. The most important was yes, people want this product. Apparently there is a market for it. Now we just need to work on the numbers. We need to start tweaking them. We need to start fine-tuning what we build, how we build it, and the cost structure. So this developed over time, but it didn't happen overnight. It took us years before we started making money.
Wow.
So that's part of the trick.
Well, one of my takeaways from your book was about the benefits of not getting started in a business while it's in a peak cycle. And I think of real estate. I think about what we just experienced in the past 3 years, extraordinarily robust activity. And many people became realtors. It made sense. But you suggest that it might be better for a business to start and position itself when things are not high. So, as high, in your words, in your book, I love this. You say, wait patiently, be on your surfboard very attentively, and wait for the right wave to
Yeah.
jump on, and not on the wave that's already moving fast. So I'm sure you've seen that. I'm sure that that's why you have this wisdom, and that's why you're sharing it in this book.
Yes, yes, I've seen it time after time. It's just human nature. When we see things going well in any given industry, when something is working, when people are making money, when there's prosperity, we want to jump on that wave. But what we don't realize is that it's a little bit late and it's a little bit difficult, and the pros are already on top of those
Yeah,
waves.
boy, they're already
You
known, aren't
cannot,
they?
yes, yes, catching up with a wave is extremely difficult. It's possible, but improbable.
Hmm.
And you're jumping on it appears to me that what I've seen more frequently over the years is that the majority of people want to get into a business when it's hot,
Sure.
when it's doing very well. The perception of quick money, easy money appears to be there, but it's only an illusion. It
Hmm.
doesn't last. Particularly in this business, this business is one where you don't open your doors and start making money the next day.
Hmm.
it's
Boy.
it's a very long cycle before you begin to have a product to sell. Before you have product on the ground, you have to buy the property, you have to examine it, entitle it, develop it, permit it, build it, market it. It may be 2 years before you actually start seeing the results. What is going to happen in 2 years? God knows what the market is going to do. So it's very uncertain to start when the peak of the market is there. So that's what I say. When the market is on, there are so many beauties, there are so many positive aspects of starting in a horrible market, because everybody's worried about their own survival. Nobody's expanding, nobody's growing, nobody's buying properties. Subcontractors are available. They're looking for business. They're giving you
Hmm.
better pricing.
Right.
So is it fun to get into that business when times are difficult? No. uh, it's scary. It doesn't make any sense. It
Sure.
doesn't appear to be the right decision, but it gives you a little more time to get your act together.
Sure. Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. That makes sense the way you describe it. But you also touch on the history of home building and home ownership, which I found fascinating. I also love how you describe a home as something we identify with, where we spend our time and create memories. You write, your home often tells the story of who you are. And to me, this really reveals so much about who you are and why you are so successful. You understand your clients and you connect with their hearts.
I try. I try, and obviously it becomes impossible once you start achieving some level of growth. You don't get to meet with your buyers. You don't get to talk to them or experience what they're going through during the process of purchasing a home. But we did see a lot of that in from the initial stages of our company, even finding, locating a property, and at some point driving by the neighborhood a few years later and looking through the window, a family having dinner there, and saying,
Mm.
wow, we remember putting that design on paper and working through the permitting process, and look at it now. It was fascinating. But I mentioned in my book, it occurred to me that this product, I don't know if there's another one, but it's the only one that changes name when somebody acquires it. It goes from a house to a home. This,
Aw, that's
you,
beautiful. Well,
you convert its meaning once you acquire it and transfer your identity and your life into it. It's fascinating. It's
that
a
that
great product.
that must feel so good. Something else that jumped out to me in your book is you advise business people and particularly home builders and realtors not to work in a city or a field that they don't know. Basically, to stay in your lane, for example. You say, don't try to sell luxury homes if you don't understand how the wealthy live and what's important to them. And then also, don't move to a new city and try to start up a business right away. I believe what you're saying is that if you want to sell luxury homes or create something in a new place, you first have to get into that world, study it, live it, and understand who your audience is. Is that right?
Yes, yes, yes. Like everything else, you need to take a little bit of time to understand what you're doing, to do your research. Us as business people, as entrepreneurs, we operate with our gut instinct more than
Mm-hmm.
with our brain. I do that all the time. I get into things because they feel right, because I think that I can do a good job. And at some point I realized, oh wow, I didn't have enough information about what I was doing. We are also by nature in sales. We know how to sell, we know how to present, we know how to promote, and we tend to talk more than we listen. And we do
Mm,
that with people, and we do that with products, and we do that with markets. We talk on top of the market instead of listening to the market. You
interesting.
should spend a little time understanding what your product is and who your audience is.
Yeah.
If you understand the audience and you understand their needs, how they live, their habits, their hobbies, you begin to realize what it is that you need to provide to them in order for them to live a better quality of life, particularly in a product that's a very high ticket priced item.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it requires a little bit of know-how, and you need to also listen to a few people that already know the market and understand the market. Obviously, make your own conclusions and make your own decisions, but yes, research is part of this business
Boy, it's hard to slow
and any other
down.
business. I'm sorry. Yes. It,
I'm sure it's hard to slow down when you want it when you're so excited. So you talk about the importance of creating a mission and a vision for your business. You write your mission is what you stand for, and your vision statement is how you see your business growing and thriving. And you say entrepreneurs frequently act on emotion more than logic. We just talked about that. They make decisions based on a gut feeling as they proceed without a clear plan of attack. But that
yeah.
enthusiasm, that drive to jump right in, and is one of the personality traits of entrepreneurs. So let's talk about that need to slow down and especially to establish your mission and your vision. Why is that so important?
And I've been trying to do that my whole career because
Me
I
too.
tend to be a person that's not only physically but mentally in a hurry.
Mm,
I'm trying to move fast, build, create, develop, move on to the next stage, move on to the next step. And I, even the process of building and creating a business plan, which I'm a big proponent, it clarifies your thoughts. It helps you identify what are you trying to achieve. It forces you to think of the sequence of events that need to occur before you build and start and grow a business. And those statements, whether it's your vision or your mission, they help you not only clarify, understand what you're doing, understand why you're doing it. What market are you attacking? Why are you addressing these particular needs? Are these needs um, needed in the current market conditions? How do I plan to be better? And how do I plan to differentiate myself from the rest? So there's a number of questions that need to be answered. You need to ask them to yourself and then start putting them on paper and start brainstorming to better understand any given business before you take on and forget that you're embarking on a business that might have much more to it than what
mm,
you think.
sure.
Um, and building that identity, because ultimately we all want to have a little bit of a difference within our business model than everybody else, and we want to do it better.
Sure.
So
And we want to understand our why we're doing what we're doing to be able to communicate that to the world. You know, when starting a business, you advise entrepreneurs to first stockpile cash. We kind of heard a little bit about that when you were talking about getting into that transitional neighborhoods in Houston and how cash was really important for the first several years. Let's talk about that. And also, what are some other quick tips that you have for those who want to be business owners?
yes, and of course, stacking a pile of cash is quite a contradiction for an entrepreneur, for a startup, because most of us normally start without resources,
Sure,
without
yeah.
enough
An
money.
idea.
So it's easier said than done as well. Hey, just put aside a bunch of money. But what I mean is, I don't necessarily um, propose that you should have all the money that you need, but at least that you consider the fact that things are not going to happen exactly the way you planned them, and that you need to have a plan B.
Mm.
Again, not only in this business, but in every industry that I've ever been in, markets change, the timing in which your product is offered or available to the market, your collections process, in this case, finishing and selling and closing a home. There's changes in the process. There's unforeseeable things that occur, like theft. Something
Mm-hmm.
breaks, somebody
Yeah.
doesn't show up, weather conditions, changes in code, anything that can occur and possibly can go wrong. As we say, anything that can go wrong will probably happen. And when you're going to start a business or build or develop something, you just need to have those contingencies set aside, or at least know what you would do. There's an important one. Most of us, when we start a business of this style, of this sector, we use, whether it's outside sources of investment
Mm-hmm.
or leverage, which is loans
Right.
from banks and financial institutions. Those need to be serviced. And determining the time, the number of months that is going to take for us to develop any given project is very important. And it's hard to time it, because uh, it's going to cut into your profitability and into the cost factor. Carrying the cost, servicing the debt is one of the big components. And sometimes we underestimate how slow some of these
Mm-hmm.
projects can go for a number of reasons. So planning it and being conservative is what I mean at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day.
Well, you also say be organized. Now, this goes beyond housekeeping. Being organized is really a reflection on your brand. Let's talk about that.
I see that as one of the most important components in any organization. I've seen businesses, even some that I participated in as an investor or as a partner, that had a group of individuals that were very talented, very creative, but they were very disorganized. And I would claim that one of the most important components in the success of a business is a high level of organization. Planning your day, planning your activities, prioritizing things, understanding what needs to come first, what needs to be second, what are some of the things that need to occur for me to get to tomorrow, and identify those by categories. Not forgetting to do something that may not appear to be as urgent today, but eventually is going to turn into something much more urgent. Uh, so organizational skills is something that may be undervalued, underestimated in the business world. But perhaps I see it more important than intelligence,
Wow.
because you can learn a business, you can, but through persistence and through time, you can learn certain things. But if you're messy and disorganized, for example, whether it's in your bookkeeping or in your schedules, it's very difficult to get anywhere.
You know, very good advice. You also have a chapter in your book that says, don't build based on media reports. Now, I believe you're not bashing the media, but you are saying don't make decisions solely on what other people are saying, especially those who aren't experts in your field. You want to share about that?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. Because the media's purpose is not necessarily to give you a market report, okay? And they give you information that does not necessarily directly affect your particular niche market or your industry, for that matter. It All of these industries are depending on different factors within the economy, and sometimes we tend to be influenced by whatever we hear out there. What I claim, you are correct. I'm not speaking bad of the news or the media. I'm just saying that their objectives are different than yours.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
need to determine your business based on very tangible economic information that has a lot to do with your industry.
You write about the importance of listening to the signs. Let's talk about that. So, here's the multi-million-dollar question. Can you share some insights into the signs that you're seeing right now in the real estate market and for home buyers and investors? Can you give us a brief lesson in history and economics and describe where we've been recently and where you believe that the industry is headed?
Absolutely, absolutely. And once again, every industry, every sector of the market has its own components that make it or break it. The home industry is no different. It has particular economic pieces of information, pieces of data that either move it forward or can create a problem. For example, your levels of inventory, interest rates, employment, immigration, the growth of your community, so on and so forth. Affordability is a big one, so and how we identify those, that's a whole nother conversation of how to understand each one of those. But I have to admit, I've been in a number of cycles, and this one is a little bit uncertain, not to mention the fact that every single economic cycle is different because it's caused by different things, by different activities that go on in our economic cycles. This particular one, like all the rest of them, is different.
Hmm.
And it's not created by a housing bubble, it's not created by overproduction of homes. It's created by attempting to slow down inflation. So we have to analyze those particular um, decisions that the government is taking, for example, to maintain interest rates at a higher level, and they affect our business. But there, right now, it's a little bit confusing because there are some things that are very positive. For example, there's not a lot of inventory in the market. That's good. There's not a lot of builders that are producing homes or overproducing homes. That's very good. Most people, one of the biggest competitors in the housing market represents resale product. People trying to resell. When the economy slows down, a lot of people attempt to sell their house for one reason or another, and that becomes the biggest obstacle for new builders and
Mm.
new construction. You
Mm-hmm.
have to compete with all of that resale inventory. This particular cycle, we're not competing with any of that because very few people, unless you absolutely need to sell your house, nobody's wanting to get rid of their 3% interest
Oh,
rate
for sure.
mortgages. They're holding on to it.
Yeah.
And that's a very good sign. And that's also a very good thing for us as builders. We don't have that burden of having to compete with an influx of resales. So there are, I'll narrow it down because this is a long discussion. I'll narrow it down that right now there are some good components, there are some bad components, and it's a little bit uncertain. Elections years are always a little bit difficult because
Mm-hmm.
people are waiting to see what happens. Interestingly enough, after the elections, I've seen it time after time, for example, when things start moving because half of the population wins and half of the population loses. It doesn't matter who's in the White House, the market continues. But
Hmm.
before the elections, there's a high level of uncertainty because no, everybody is waiting to see what's going to happen. So nobody moves. A lot of people just wait on standby. After the elections, now we know what happened. We can move on. So there's always a number of reasons why these economic cycles change. So we just have to learn a little bit at a time and start identifying which are the ones that affect our industry.
Boy, great advice. Well, one final thought. I want to remind everyone that aside from being a very successful lifelong entrepreneur, you're also a student of philosophy. And in your book, you talk about taking the entrepreneurial road that often feels dark and lonely and moving at a horrible pace. And you remind us about the joys of creating something that wasn't here before and pushing ourselves, living with passion and conviction. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, the world of an entrepreneur uh, is uncertain. That is the I would say the number one word that I like to use. It's a little bit scary. There's a misconception that owning your business, that becoming an entrepreneur translates to freedom, money, success, and control over your life.
Right, right.
And the truth is that, yes, that is correct, but not in the short term. It takes many years before you can actually achieve those beautiful benefits. But in the earlier years, it's quite the contrary. It's uncertain, it's scary, it's speculative, it's lonely, it's a lot of things.
Hmm.
You go from one boss perhaps to many bosses.
Hmm.
Now it's your lenders, your bankers, your clients, your own employees. They depend on you, their paychecks, the rent, the bills. You go from one responsibility which is to show up to your place of work, to a number of responsibilities. So there's a beauty to it. There's We could get philosophical as to all of the wonderful benefits of becoming everything that you want to become,
Mm,
uh,
for sure.
and more, and having those opportunities. But they come at a price, and you have to make that decision on your own, whether that is the type of life and that is a type of gamble that you want to take. But you have to give it. What the advice I give it is, give people is, if you make that decision, you have to give it your all. Um, you have to truly assume that your entire world is going to depend on your choices, on your effort, on your persistence, and you cannot take this activity as a hobby. It has to be a lifestyle,
Yeah,
and it's a 7 day a week.
absolutely. Great advice. Jose Berlanga, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. It's truly been an honor spending time with you.
It's my pleasure. Bonnie, thank you so much for the invitation, and um, I hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you so much. Well, you can glean more business wisdom that's applicable to businesses beyond home building from Jose Berlanga's new book, The Business of Home Building: How to Start and Operate a Residential Construction Company. It's now available on Amazon. Read more about Jose online at flagstaffbusinessnews.com and quadcitiesbusinessnews.com. I'll leave you with some inspirational words from Jose Berlanga. He says, your attitude in business affects more than you might expect. Positivity and optimism are key, mixed in with a touch of reality. He adds that as an entrepreneur, you have empowered yourself to change the world. This is Zonie Living, Business, Adventure, and Leadership. I'm Bonnie Stevens.